All right, folks, welcome to a little bit of an emergency podcast. We got some hitting news that has been dropping in the last a few days. I know I got some messages over the weekend about what's going to be taking place over in Geneva on May 22nd through the 28th with the World Health Organization, otherwise known as WHO. A bunch of kooks, if you ask me. But anyway, besides that, I have James Roguski on, and he's kind of leading the way in the information of what is actually going to go on with our rights and our sovereignty as nations. So I'm going to turn this over to James. James, I can't thank you enough for doing this last minute, and let me and my listeners know what these political scumbags and world leaders, quote unquote, loose term, are up to.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It was short notice, but time is of the essence with this thing. And so I'm going to start off and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll just assume that this is all news to everybody. Okay, I've been deep down this rabbit hole for 2 months, and it's easy sometimes to, there's just so much information. It can be overwhelming, but I think what I'm able to do is make it simple and straightforward so people can just get the core of the idea, and then you can get all the information that you want. And so you mentioned that starting on Sunday, the 22nd to the 28th, there's going to be an event in Geneva at the Palace of Nations, okay, which apparently is undergoing renovations, and so they're going to have some weirdness going on there. But all of the nations around the world, 194 nations, send their delegations, send their delegates and advisors and so forth, and they vote on the future of the health of the world, supposedly. And where I come into play with this is on March 28th, I came upon a document that they probably didn't want anybody to see at all, right? And that document's really simple. It's a 13-page PDF, not a huge document. The first 4 pages of it are cover letters, because the United States had a 2-page cover letter that they sent to the WHO to submit the other 9 pages, which was these amendments to something known as the International Health Regulations. And we've got about an hour, so maybe I'll give a little bit of background on what those are. So on January 18th, which was just in the 4-month window where they have to give, basically early warning. You can't just drop all these things, complicated amendments on the floor of the assembly. You had to do it 4 months in advance. They beat it by a couple of days. And then the WHO sent it out to all of the member nations. And then it just disappeared. There was no media, nothing. I mean, they talked a little bit about it that day. And like a week later, interestingly, like approximately 50 countries voiced their support for it. Now, when you realize the denseness of the language and the importance of it, you got to guess that those 50 countries were kind of in on crafting it, because you just, how did they go and ask their people of their nation, do you want us to support this? Nobody had a word in. There was no comment period. There was no public discussion. There was no debate on the floor of Parliament somewhere, or Senate or the House or anything like that. Just very much in secret. And if anybody's ever heard the story of Nancy Pelosi famously saying something to the effect of, "Oh, you get to read it after you voted, vote for it."
Oh yeah, yeah, totally.
That's pretty much what it appeared they're trying to do. And then there's a 6-month period of implementation. So if it was just all quiet, hey, Merry Christmas, here's your one world government with, worldwide dictatorship. And so I came upon this on March 28th, and it was on a website that had a little hyperlink and said, "Oh, we got this document." That's pretty much all. I mean, it did a little bit of an article around it. And when I looked at it and I realized what it was, I started doing an article on it. I analyzed it. I did my best to try to explain, what it was. And I published this article on March 31st. And I've been trying to get everybody to pay attention ever since. On April 12th, the document appeared on the WHO website.
Hmm.
And so it's like, okay, everybody, this isn't just me talking. This is the WHO. Everything I was saying for 2 weeks is for real. And more people started to pay attention to it. And I heard today that Russia is trying to add some amendments, and the United States is trying to add some more amendments, which they're really not supposed to be able to do. What happened to that 4-month, time period of early warning?
Right.
And so things are starting to get really crazy because the event is literally next week. Now, the amendments are only 8 pages long, and I'm sorry, 9 pages long, and the actual document, the little booklet that are the international health regulations, is 84 pages long. So we're not talking about something that's enormous. And unfortunately, though, what has happened is the World Health Organization for the last year and a half has been putting out just literally millions of words, just documents and reports and commissions and webinars and all kinds of independent panels and millions of words about something that they're proposing for the future, which is called a pandemic treaty.
Right.
They all seem to believe that if they just had more power and more money, then they wouldn't screw it up as bad as they did last time. Okay.
Well, that's
And
bullshit.
well, you take something that fails and you throw money at it as if that's going to fix it, right?
Right.
That there's nothing in these amendments about early treatment, about essential medicines, about options for nutrition and herbs or whatever it may be. Absolutely nothing about health. It's just completely a power grab for more control, more surveillance, and transferring the control of when an emergency is declared from the individual nation literally to one person. Tedros Ghebreyesus, who's currently the Director General of the WHO, he's up for re-election, and like all good dictators, he's going to be coronated again at this event unopposed for another 5 years. And it seems like they want to just hand him the keys to the kingdom and allow him to create an emergency at whatever whim he has. And it may sound like I'm overstating it, but if you actually read and you can decipher the crazy legalese that this is written in, you realize that there's no check, there's no balance, there's no limit on that power to declare an emergency pretty much whenever he wants.
Well, and we saw this in the beginning of the what I like to call the plandemic, because I didn't know something with a, what was it, a 98.7% survival rate somewhere in there, caused the whole world to shut down essentially. And I'm not saying people didn't die, and I'm not saying COVID isn't a real thing, but the focus started turning to, well, this is what the CDC says. This is what the World Health Organization says. It's not what the government says. It's not what the state says, or and now they're going to sit here and, like you said, go and vote basically to give our rights away as not just American citizens, but 194 other countries. You know what I mean? And tell me, and I listened to an interview that you did today with two of my good friends, and that is treason, and something needs to be done. And I don't, and people in our community, this is kind of like, holy shit, we're there. Like, we're there. We've been screaming about the new world order and one world government since, holy shit, since I was like a little kid. You know what I mean? And I'm 45 now, and that I've always known new world order was just something that you grew up with, and now here we are. And if this is true and implemented, I mean, is there any way to stop it?
I'm actually very optimistic. I'm going to do something right now that people don't do, but I've been doing it this whole month. Let me give everybody my phone number. So get out a piece of paper and a pen. I'm about to dox my own number. It's 310-619-3055. Don't call now. I don't know if you're live or recording, but
No.
wait till the show's over. But look at all of the information that I have on my account on Substack. It's jamesroguski.substack.com, JamesRoguski.substack.com. I think I'm up to like 15 articles about this now. Number 4 article in the list is Wake Up and Smell the Burning of Our Constitution. And that's the article that I wrote on March 31st. And literally, it just presents the evidence. Okay. You scroll down until you see the word evidence in little wooden tiles like Scrabble. Okay. And below that is exhibit A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And above it is a video that explains all of that in detail in English. When people look at this, and I've already kind of given you, the Cliff Notes version of it.
Right.
Some people have literally screamed. Okay. A lot of people, when the light bulb goes off in their head, it's funny. The sound of a light bulb going off in somebody's head normally sounds something like, oh, right.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. Or, and then it's generally followed by something like, oh, hell no. What are they, crazy? And so all I've done, I'm not like Snowden, who was working for, a company that had access to confidential information and felt that it was important to bring it out. That's not me. I'm not anywhere near Assange, who's getting information from everybody and publishing it. All I did was go to the Federal Register, go to the WHO website, go to look at the law, and just read it and see how they're manipulating it all, and just take out the needles in the haystack and make it so that anybody can look at it. One of the laws that I found was not technically a law, the joint resolution that Harry Truman signed along with the House and the Senate on June 14th, 1948, to get us into the WHO. And if you just read that, it might wake you up a little bit. It's kind of like our terms of, our agreement. What it said is, yeah, we're going to join the WHO, but whatever they say, we don't have to change our laws at all. Okay. I'm paraphrasing, but that's the gist of it. Now, if you just sit with that one, and that's exhibit A, okay, from 1948, we're in the WHO voluntarily. We can leave anytime we want. Even if they pass the amendments, Article 61 in the International Health Regulations very clearly says you got 6 months, and all you're going to have to do, if you don't like the amendments, is have your Secretary of State or your president or whoever they delegate just write a letter to the WHO and say, no, thank you. It's that simple, but they're not going to do it unless we make them do it.
Right. I was just going to ask that, because I once you hand over that kind of power, you know what I mean? And with this administration, oh, they ain't going to back out. You know what I mean? Right. They want this.
Right. And so realistically, okay, maybe, my prayers will be answered and they realize that we see what they're doing. Okay. They were hoping to just have this go, boom, pass through, nobody sees it. In the light of day, maybe my prayer will be answered and they'll go, you know what, everybody's watching, we better not do this. Okay. But, they're pretty cocky. And so what is likely to happen is they'll vote on it. And if it is approved, immediately it's going to be all hands on deck, pointing at 194 foreign ministers. Whoever the foreign minister, we call it a Secretary of State.
Right.
Most countries call it a foreign minister. They are going to get a hailstorm of attention. Okay, because all they have to do is write a letter to tell the WHO to shove it. Okay, in nice diplomatic, polite language. Okay, right. I'm a peaceful guy. There should be no violence. There should be no anger. There should be no nothing. We just have to get our backbones up as a people and say, as a people, we reject this. And if we want to go further, we just reject the WHO, because any organization that could be so corrupt as to try to slip in, stealing, essentially a portion of our sovereignty from every nation in the world, they absolutely cannot be trusted. They need to go. And
Absolutely.
people are either going to wake up and stand up, or you're going to take it, and you either scream now or you're going to be muzzled forever. And at this point, so far so good. I mean, I've never seen fire in people's bellies like I'm seeing these days. uh, I hope it keeps growing. It's not just America, right? I mean, I've gotten phone calls from Ecuador and Japan and Malaysia. There's another one. Sorry, folks, but gonna have to get back at you. Uganda, South Africa, Australia, Europe, Mexico. People are waking up, and that's what this is. This is taking their hopefully failed attempt at a great reset. Switching authority from 194 nations to one guy, and turning that into the biggest, cleanest red pill wake up call you've ever seen, to turn those light bulbs on in people's heads and convert this into a great awakening. And I have every hope in the world, faith in the world that this is going to happen, because I see what's happening with the people who see this. There are those who just want another blue pill, and they're like, I can't be bought. It's okay, fine. Hand them another blue pill and let them live their life the way they want. It's their choice. But man, people are getting awakened like I've never ever seen. So I'm very.
And you mentioned Australia. I remember probably maybe closer to a year now, but they even blatantly admitted that this is enforcing the new world order at one point, with their health lockdowns and their I consider them a concentration camp to an extent, but or a re-education camp or a rehealing camp, whatever they're doing down there. And I feel so bad for Australians. And to me, after hearing what you're laying out, it's almost like, was Australia almost a test run for some of this, just to see how much they could get away with?
That's what many people have said. Here's I'm going to give a twist on the answer to that. Okay. But I will do my best to answer it, because we could turn that into a test run of our very own. Okay. And that's one way of looking at it. Who is the weak point in the link, in the argument, the battle, the conflict between the people who want to take power and the people? Okay. It's really very simple. It's law enforcement. Okay. So go find anybody that you know who's in law enforcement, and kindly, gently, with all the love in your heart, go to anybody you know who's in law enforcement and ask them to look at this information. Okay. Nice and peaceful. Man, you got to look at this. If everybody around the world just went to their law enforcement officers, your sheriff, police officers, whatever it might be, they've sworn an oath to defend the Constitution.
Yes.
Okay. This is a direct challenge to the Constitution. Those are the people that should be fighting against this. Okay. And just appeal to them. Hey, when you started working, did you swear an oath to defend the Constitution? Have you heard what they're doing to the Constitution? Or maybe what they just did? Okay. Take a look at this information. If we win that, not battle, but if we win that mental, emotional connection, and we get all of them to realize that this isn't about masks, it isn't about vaccines, it isn't about ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine or PCR tests or remdesivir or any of that sort of stuff. No. Do you think your country should be in charge of your country, or do you think this guy in Geneva should be in charge of you? And that's fundamental. Okay. Co-opt the people who would be against us if they were listening to that side, and just get them to understand that this is what's being done. It's national control being given over to a one world government. You won't wake up everybody, but that's the tip of the spirit right there. Because if the police are on our side, as I trust they will be, what do they have? They got nothing. And not to mention veterans and Army. I mean, any veteran, my understanding, I was never in the military, but my understanding is they feel that that's an oath for life. Okay. And so, hey, were you in the military? Thank you for your service. Did you swear an oath? Look what's happening here. Now it's going to get really interesting.
Oh, and to quickly answer your question, yes, I was. And it is an oath for life. You know what I mean? I will
Absolutely.
follow. I will fight to the death for the Constitution of this country that I love.
And the thing with this though is this isn't necessarily a battle that's going to be won with bullets and mortars and tanks and all that stuff. This is a war for people's minds.
Yeah.
Okay. And this topic is a winner. All right. Because you're not arguing about, oh, you should wear a mask. Hey, we can agree to disagree on any and all of that stuff. Okay. Here we have a common situation where this one person in Geneva is trying to snag all this power, right? Are we going to just give it to him?
And he's not even a real doctor. He's not even a doctor.
No. Right. And so looking forward, all right, the rules with the WHO is that there's a 6-month period, which there's sneakily, it's really supposed to be 18 months to 2 years, but the amendments are shortening it to 6 months. Be that as it may, it's still 6 months. From the end of May to the end of November, that happens to coincide with our election season. Okay. Now, I'm not going to get into whether or not they count the votes the proper way.
Right.
That's a whole nother couple of shows.
Yes.
All right. But the electioneering season, the political season is upon us. All right. And I'm actually, quite frankly, going to have a blast with it because pick an office, say a representative. Okay. Everybody in the country, that office is open for reelection every 2 years. So we've got midterms. You're going to have likely an incumbent, maybe some of them will retire, but there will be an incumbent. Send your incumbent this information. Okay. He's probably already heard about it because we've been on this for the last week. But send them your information. Talk to the people that are on the staff, which, treat them nicely because they're your neighbors, right? If they work in the local office, because representatives don't just have the Washington office, they have 2, 3, 4, local offices now. Talk to those people, explain this to them. They're people just like you are for the most part. And if they look at it, they'll be like, well, wait a minute, this is crazy. And when they get the second email and the third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth and seventh, they're going to be like, Congress or congressman or senator or whatever, something's going on. You need to look at this. I got to show this to you. All right. If he doesn't or she doesn't do anything, the office holder, they've also sworn an oath to defend the Constitution. And so once they know, it's literally a criminal act to keep that type of information secret. It's called misprision of treason. Weird name, but if you're covering up treason, you're part of the treason.
Yes.
Okay. So, it's a big setup, Senator. Senator, have you heard about this? Right. If he says no, oh, well, now you have. What are you going to do about it? If they're dumb enough to say, yeah, we know all about it, you go, oh, so you're aware of this plot. Oh, so I got this little litmus test that I'm doing for the election. I got you down as pro treason because you haven't said anything about it. Okay. I'm going to go talk to your opponent and I'll see if he's pro treason too. I'm looking for somebody who's going to step up and talk against this and demand that Secretary of State reject this just by writing a simple letter. Just write a letter and say, no, thank you. It's going to be a crazy election season with this topic hanging over. If they approve it and there's a 6-month period, it's going to be a very important aspect of the elections.
Oh, totally. I don't know. I don't know where I stand anymore on voting. Like you said, whether they counted the votes this last time is a whole nother show. But what did get kind of pointed in my eyes is leaders are selected, not elected anymore.
Yeah.
And when corruption does go down, nothing's ever done about it. You know, they give you crumbs here and there. Oh, you know, they're reopening this or they're looking at this, and nothing ever fucking happens. But if you and I were to do a, a, an eighth or 16th or whatever corruption that some of these, you know, elected officials do, we'd be in jail in a heartbeat. And then, you know, you compile, you know, something to this nature of taking away our sovereign rights to for health. You know, I'm sorry. I I know when I'm sick and I know when I'm healthy. I know if I go outside and I see people dropping dead, okay, I think I'm going to stay in my house. That's just, you know, common sense. But if I go outside and I don't see people, you know, oh, they're dropping dead and da 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 da, you know, I start questioning things. I start thinking for myself and not thinking, you know, or being told what the black screen in my living room is telling me on a nightly or daily basis with whatever news station you want to put out there, whether it's left or right or in the middle. They're all ran by the same company at the end of the day. You know what I mean? And it's just one of those things that it frustrates me, and I could kind of see where Ryan was coming from it because, you know, you give people this information and you're like, just wake up. But at the end of the day, like you said, no, I'd rather just take my blue pills and go back to, you know, sleep. That this is too scary, and I'm fine. You know what I mean? And it's frustrating. You know what I mean? I don't know. Thought.
Well, you know, I probably should be afraid. I mean, I think I'm a relatively smart person. I've got a brain in my head and I try to use it. And, you know, if the zombie apocalypse, if they're all looking for what I got, I might be in trouble in that regard.
Yeah.
But in terms of spreading the word with people and sharing this, you know, I learned some time ago that, and I'll try to give this an example and I hope I get the point across. If there was 100 people in the room and you wanted to get something to happen, okay, some of those people will never do anything,
Mm.
okay, and one or two of those people will work their asses off, okay. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be building a house, it could be, you know, cutting your grass, it could be, you know, writing a book, whatever it is. There's somebody who's going to say, oh man, this is great, I love it, right? They love it and they want to do it, and they're fired up. And the first thing to do is to identify the people who want to help. Okay. Don't try to, you know, if 2 out of 100 want to help, you just want to go, hey, who wants to help? You know, here's the problem. Who wants to help? Come on over here. We'll work together. The other 98 are just going to suck the life out of you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Zombie apocalypse, you know, vampire, whatever. Step number one, everybody's, well, not everybody, most everybody has a phone, and you've got some contacts in your phone. Just go sit in your easy chair, get one of the videos off the website, pick any one you want. They're all pretty good. Or just send the website or one of the graphics. There's a little yellow flyer that's got 7 points and it's got a life of its own. I mean, InfoWars has actually done 3 separate shows, brief little clips, just reading the flyer that I have near the top of the page. It's got 7 points. They spent like a 4 or 5 minute segment just reading it. Okay.
Nice.
And so that thing's got a life of its own. But the point is, you tell people, here's the information, check it out. If you're interested and you want to know more, you know, we'll get back together. And expect that 99% of the people are going to be too busy, not going to want to hear it. But now you got bragging rights. Now you're like, man, I told you way back then.
Yeah.
So out of the gate, you just tell everybody to look at whatever aspect of it is you want. There's probably 40, I think I've done like 40 videos already. All right, pick whichever one you like. I don't care. Take this one. As soon as this one's up and running, get that link. If this is what you watched to hear me say these words and you think it's important, then obviously this video worked on you. So take the link to this and share it. Right. I don't know what your biggest video is. I hope this one kicks butt and, you know,
I hope so too.
put you through, you know, for a good cause. But the point is, go down your contact list on your phone, get the link, copy, paste, text, paste, text. next, Alice, Bob, Kathy, Dennis, Frank, George, Harry, boom, boom, boom. When you hit the bottom, go to your email. Yeah, get everybody send them an email. Keep it simple. Send them a video. Send them this video, right? There's an image of this flyer that you can put, and you can put it on Twitter, Facebook, any of the other many social media networks. How many people do you have that can instant message you on whatever platform you're on?
Yeah.
Send it to all of them. Then go back around and do it again with something different. Okay. And at some point, you will have told somebody who is like, what in the hell is going on? This is crazy. They're going to be activated. If you're going to talk to anybody, talk to them about what you all are going to do next. You start with organizing people who want to do something, right? So I put my phone out there because if anybody doesn't give a shit, they so don't give a shit that they don't call me. It's only the people who care that call me. And so everybody who calls me, it's like, this is a wonderful connection. What do you want to do? Here's all the resources that we have in our toolkit. And boom, off to the races they go. The job is not to try to talk to some blockhead and like a piece of granite that you're trying to chisel and crack. You're wasting your time, right? Ask everybody, would you like a red pill? I got a really big red pill. And if people go, no, I don't want to know. That's conspiracy. Just walk away. Just let them live their life. Find the people who are ready to wake up, or maybe already more awake than you. And 8 weeks ago, I had no idea. I had no idea about this because it was hidden. And maybe 8 days ago, you had no idea. Whenever it was that you found out.
I think it was this past Friday is when I found out.
And for anybody watching this, it's 8 hours ago. You had no idea. Okay. And for anybody who just tuned in, it's 8 minutes ago. They're like, what the hell's going on? Right. So, have some love and compassion and empathy for people who are busy and working hard and just haven't gotten the memo. Give them the memo and realize that, they got to pay the bills. They got family, they got, work, school, whatever it might be. But the first video on the main article, you can go to dontyoudare.info, dontyoudare.info. The first video is 3 minutes. And so if you ain't got 3 minutes, man, you better change your life because, you should have 3 minutes, right?
I'm pretty sure all these little, not little people, but people such as myself, I do have a TikTok addiction on the conspiracy side. If you have 3 minutes to watch a TikTok video, you got 3 minutes to watch this.
You're watching some long TikToks too. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. They got some good conspiracy content on there. Some of it, you go to research and you find, okay, they're just doing it for clicks and likes, but there's some good stuff there. But
sure. Well, I mean, I've one of the first videos I did with my friend David, he's doing what you do, similar thing, and what he recognized was, he got his normal, like when he's looking at his analytics, he got his normal thing that he got. But then it started going all around the world, okay? Because this is not just the United States. We only get one vote in the World Health Assembly, okay? China, 1.5 billion people, India, 1.5 billion people, United States, Brazil, Indonesia, Japan, all of the countries that have huge populations, they all get one vote. The tiniest little nations in the WHO, they all get one vote. And maybe that sounds fair, but on a person to person basis, I mean, one vote for everybody in China, one vote for everybody in the United States. It's structured that way specifically to, hopefully take care of countries who are maybe often neglected.
Right.
And the history of these regulations came from shit in the streets. I mean, if you go back to England and Paris, they used to put their sewage in the gutter. And, no wonder they had epidemics. No wonder they had plague, right?
Yeah, they'd shit in a bucket and leave it outside.
Right. And, dig a hole and bury it, please, people, right?
Yeah.
But, if you're living in the city, back in the day, they didn't have indoor plumbing. They didn't have underground sewers. I mean, that's a, marvelous development. I couldn't imagine not having it, but they didn't have it. And so they had these sanitary regulations, That's where this all came from. And then in 1948, it got rolled into the WHO. And, into the 70s and 80s, there was still a problem in India and places in Africa where people live, they live in nature for the most part, or their cities are, really, really packed and they didn't have the infrastructure. But it wasn't vaccines that stopped childhood diseases. It was cleanliness.
Mm-hmm.
They stopped living in that filth. And so they were healthier. And then vaccines came along after all of the death rates plummeted, and they just took credit for something they didn't actually do. And now we still believe that crap,
Right.
And so in terms of what I see coming in the near future, there's only a week before they vote, almost exactly. I guess today's the 17th, and I think they're probably going to talk about this on the 24th. They may or may not vote. They may wimp out and go, oh, we were just going to talk about it and we'll put it off till some point in the future. But at this point, we're on to it.
Mm-hmm.
We see what we were not supposed to see this. Have you ever done a broadcast where you could report that next week there's going to be a crime attempted? And
Yeah.
y'all can watch. I mean, if you go to the WHO and you search for the 75th Assembly, or just do a search for WHO 75th Assembly, you get on their page, you click one button, and they're going to be live streaming their crap, right? It says right on there, come back to this page next week for a live stream. Nobody was going to be paying attention prior to this. Nobody even knew it was going to happen. They thought they were going to just sneak it in. But, I've got my eye on you, it's like we're going to be watching to see what they're doing. And they may still try to get away with it because they think they can.
Oh, that would not shock me. Just from what they implemented and rolled out, like when they first locked everything down. I guarantee you, these leaders were like, "Fuck, that was easy." They all listened.
Yeah.
What else can we do? Let's keep going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And at some point, it won't stop. And that's the scary part. You know what I mean? Like, I'm all for good health care and living a good life. If there's medicine out there and I have some disease and it can legitimately cure me, I'm all for that. But if there isn't, I'm a big, my audience knows I'm a big proponent of natural health. You can, nature provides everything that we need to get healthy because big pharma, that's where they got their pharmaceuticals was from nature. Okay, they changed a couple molecules or whatever they do so they could patent it and make money, but at the end of the day, they originally discovered all this shit from nature. And you know what I mean?
So the missing piece of the puzzle here is, the actual core document with the amendments, they're only like 9 pages long. Okay.
Right.
You could skim that and go, does it actually say a single word about health anywhere? Okay. There's nothing. And so they talk about this emergency committee. One thing I sort of skipped over, they want to be able to have this public, they refer to it as a public health emergency of international concern, PHEIC, or fake. They want to be able to declare a fake whenever they want to. They're organized, the WHO is organized by region. So the Americas, Africa, Europe, Asia, India, Australia. It's just an arbitrary bureaucratic organization. It's got nothing to do with how diseases might, be moved around the world. But they have regional directors, which is just a bureaucrat. They want to give those bureaucrats the power to declare a regional emergency. So it's a public health emergency of regional concern, PHERC. Literally, they're messing with you. They want to be able to declare a FERC and FERC the world one region at a time. They also want to have an intermediate alert, health alert. What's an intermediate emergency? That's like, maybe I'm pregnant, right?
Yeah.
It's like you either have an emergency or you don't. What is this? It's all about control, surveillance, committees, bureaucracy. They want to, off on the side with the other things that are going on. It's all geared towards, well, we want to be bigger we want to put all of these requirements for surveillance on all of these countries. Oh, we got to know when the next bug is coming out. Well, the money that it costs to put all that surveillance in place, what if you actually spent that on, like, nutrition and cleanliness and maybe some baby formula, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. And no, they're spending money. And this is something that it's essentially a racket where they put out these requirements. They get donations from the companies that feed the equipment. And when you actually look at how it's all funded, most of it comes from private donations. And if you're a private donor, you think you don't want a special favor. And so
Oh,
what happens is, the contracts for all of the work that gets done goes to the folks who are, on the inside with connections. And
absolutely.
at some point, we all need to wake up, and we just need to say, look, that thing, it just needs to go away. All we have to do is get our Secretary of State to write a letter. Okay. Now, they're not going to want to, but
Hmm.
we got to make it really clear that there's going to be a lot of reasons why they want to, because the people have to say, not would you please, but you are our public servant and we are the boss of you. And if enough of us people get together and say, you will do this, not would you please. Okay. And that's the whole problem, is people think that, here's one that'll blow your everybody's mind. I'm sorry, folks, but the Constitution does not protect your rights. Wake up. The Constitution is where we, the people, gave power to our government. There's, I think, 18 or whatever the proper number is. There's 18 powers and authorities that we, the people who are sovereign collectively, when they wrote the Constitution didn't give us our rights. We gave of our own sovereign authority to our government. Okay. It's a gift. The Constitution does, the Bill of Rights says to the government that was created, don't be confused, government. We didn't give you these rights. We just want to make sure you're not thinking that when we gave you the powers that we gave you, that you could ever be confused that we gave you all, gave up any of these freedoms. But people have it so backwards. The Constitution is when we, the people, gave some limited authority to the federal government, and they've just kept taking more and more and more and more and more. The Constitution doesn't protect your rights. It limits your government.
Mm-hmm.
And look at it more closely, and you'll realize that you're the boss of them, not the other way around, right? And so when we, the people, I hope this summer and, spring and summer,
Yeah.
I hope people start to realize that, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, they don't get to tell me what to do. They work for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you were an owner of a company and you had one or two employees and they take over the company, right? Now, I'd rather have a cooperative. It'd be great if everybody worked together, but your senator and your congressperson and your mayor and everybody else, I mean, who pays their salary? You do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Start behaving like the boss that you are and tell your public servants what they are commanded to do. It's once that attitude kicks in, you don't have to be violent. You just have to be firm. You just have to
Yeah.
be secure and together, because if you're fighting amongst yourself, that's not going to work. But this is something I think is going to actually bring people together. I really do.
Well, and you had mentioned in the beginning of our talk about law enforcement, and you see a lot nowadays, people expressing their First Amendment protected activity of freedom of press or freedom of speech, and challenging their local law enforcement, and they have no clue what the Constitution actually, dictates with the Bill of Rights and what have you, like the First Amendment, and they try to get so authoritative and this and that, and 9 times out of 10, a higher ranking officer will come in that has a brain and educates a young officer and like, dude, no, what you're this civilian is correct. He's absolutely doing everything he can. We do work for him, and they
Right.
don't like some of them don't like that. Now, I do have friends in law enforcement, and they're great guys. You know what I mean? I could, and I do plan on taking this information to one of them, and just having a conversation and be like, hey,
Well, just to use an analogy that's just too easy. Okay. Um, we need this awareness to be the next variant.
mhm,
Okay. The next viral contagion has to be the awareness of this. And so imagine what happens when you talk to one police officer, one deputy or sergeant or sheriff, I mean, um, and you get that infection into the squad room.
yeah,
Okay. Um, it's not just coronavirus that can go viral. Okay. The idea of standing up for your country, defending the Constitution, and essentially what this is we have given some of our authority to our federal government. Now, we didn't do it. Our founding fathers, did that. We're living in that system. We gave them certain powers. And I actually have on one of my articles, there's a Supreme Court ruling that clearly says that our federal government cannot give those powers to anybody else.
right,
And that's what's happening here. I mean, there's literally, I found a Supreme Court ruling that we have given power to our federal government. They've taken more than they should have, but they're not allowed to give it to any other organization. They can't give it to the UN. They can't give that authority to the WHO. And what's happening now is they're giving the bottom line authority, which each nation has, to decide whether or not you're living in a state of emergency, and handing that over to one guy. Okay. No, you're not. You're
no,
not. You're just not going to do it. We're not having it. It isn't going to happen. And that's what everybody just needs to be very, very firm about. You don't need to be violent. You don't even really need to be angry. You just need to be clear in what you're telling your public servants you're demanding of them, because they took an oath to defend the Constitution. And realistically, make good buddies with your sheriff, because your sheriff is obligated to remove them from that office if you can show that they haven't been adhering to their oath of office. If there's evidence that a public official has violated their oath of office, sheriff takes them away. And so I'm not saying that's going to happen, and I'm not saying we want it to get to that point. What I'm saying is explain that to your public servant, explain this situation to that public servant, and say, look, you've sworn an oath to defend the Constitution against enemies within and without the country. What are you doing about it?
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
It's going to be a really interesting election season this time around.
Oh yeah, and a lot of people, you know, out west, it's a lot different. You know, sheriffs have more power here on the East Coast, and I live in Pennsylvania. Sheriffs are just kind of known as, okay, they're taking the next prisoner to, you know, court or whatever, and but people even out here don't realize the power of what a sheriff actually has, and what they represent. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because they are our true last defense, and oath keepers to,
Yeah.
you know, the
Go
truth.
go take one of the flyers. On the website, there's a little flyer. It's got 2 per page. It's the one I was talking about earlier.
Mhm.
You know, go make 50 copies. You got 100 flyers, and hand them out to your police officers, and just get them before anybody else does. And maybe pick a number out of the hat. I'm not going to say any number as if it's a real number. 1%, 10%, 20% of them you get one person in a squad room who's on fire about this, and everybody be talking about it. And this is not divisive.
No.
It's like, maybe some people will be like, is this for real? That sounds too crazy. That can't be for real. Is that really for real? Well, just show them the evidence.
Right.
Okay. And, aren't police officers supposed to be focused on evidence?
Exactly.
Right. Go to the website, go to dontyoudare.info, scroll down until it says evidence. You got exhibit ABCDFG. You guys know the lingo, right? You want to study that. The evidence is there. It's crystal clear. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's evidence of a crime.
Mm-hmm.
What better thing to talk to a police officer about than evidence of a crime?
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate your time and your last minute. I called you when I was at work. I had just got done listening to
I'm glad you were able to do it. I'm glad you were able to
your
do it.
your episode, and I was like, man, and we made something work today, and I'm gonna release this either tonight or tomorrow as soon as I get off work. But again, I can't thank you enough. And when this information got brought to my attention on Friday, I do a roundtable every Friday, and we kind of talked about it, and we weren't really sure, is this like QAnon type talk and what have you, and and Ryan and Ron did a little bit more digging, and then Ryan mixed up the numbers and got mind control headquarters at Fort Detrick with your number.
Oh, that
And
was hilarious. Yeah,
yeah,
thanks for reminding me. I forgot to do that. I got to call it.
yeah. And I remember talking to him and him telling me this. I'm like, whoa, that's fucking bizarre. Maybe this is some Q shit. And then, you guys had your interview and discussion and what have you. And it was just like, whoa, this is some real shit. And,
Yeah.
You're an everyday kind of Joe, like, we are, you just did your due diligence and
Yeah.
did your
No, I mean,
homework.
just
You know what I mean?
I for 14 years from when I got out of school till about 30 something, I worked as a carpenter renovating old homes in New England, and then I got a job I worked my way into being a manager and a buyer for a couple of mom and pop nutrition stores. So I spent 20 some years, living natural health. I mean, I've written books about all that. And now, before this was happening, my girlfriend and I, literally, we rescued abandoned furniture and fixed it up and sold it. That was what I was doing.
Nice.
So, I'm tired of all this. I went to a good school. I'm an educated person. I'm a smart guy. But I'm tired of all of this intellectual bullshit of just people pushing paper around, getting nothing done, wasting everybody's money doing nothing. I'm a builder. It's like, make it happen. Go to work, you get something done, you feel good about yourself. It's not that hard. Anybody here, make a 30-second video, put it on TikTok, be the next TikTok star, right? It's kind of hard to boil this down to 30 minutes, but you can. And I'm waiting for the person who comes up and gives me the cool rap song or the cool country song, and it's all about the international health regulations, right?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for somebody to get smart about that, because I couldn't carry a tune if you paid me, but I can appreciate it if that's what somebody does.
Absolutely.
Do it.
Well, one more time, let everybody know where they can get a hold of you, your website, your Substack, everything that people can find this
Sure.
information besides just hearing me or watching this video when
Sure.
I put it out on YouTube.
My name's James Roguski, Roguski. If you put a dot in the middle of that, James.Roguski, that's my Skype. James.Roguski@gmail.com is my email. No dot, jamesroguski.substack.com is the main place we get everything. And there's two easy to remember domains that point you to the two big articles. One goes to all the evidence. That's dontyoudare.info. And the one that goes to the activist toolbox. I mean, I literally have a picture of a toolbox on the activist toolbox site.
Nice.
Because I'm a carpenter and I dig toolboxes. Okay. That's stopthewho.com. And my number is 310-619-3055. And if you switch up to 301, you'll get Fort Detrick. That's not a game, but apparently that's what it is.
Yeah.
So.
Which, how weird was that? You know what I mean? Like, Yeah,
That's funny. I got to
it
try
is.
that.
But again, thank you for your time. I'm
Thank you.
glad that we got to sit down for close to an hour and get this information out there. And I know my listeners are going to appreciate it. I appreciated it. Uh,
May this be one gargantuan video for you that goes all the way around the world, um, because everybody needs to, and folks, if you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, that person might know somebody who knows everybody,
mhm.
right? And so if you think that, oh, I'm not going to tell that person because they're not going to like it, or they won't, maybe they're just, you never know what might have happened with the person that you could have told, who might have just told one person, who told one person, who told, I don't know, Joe Rogan or Tucker Carlson, or, Miley Cyrus, or, who,
Yeah,
hey, Miley, make a song about this, go for it. You never know where it's going to go. So don't censor this. I mean, if you refuse to tell somebody because you think maybe something, they're not going, you're censoring yourself.
absolutely.
So just tell everybody.
And again, thank you. And wow, I can't wait to hear you on other shows and
Well, I challenge,
follow more your work. So
here's an invitation to everybody. I own none of this. So anything that's on the websites, copy it, steal it, adapt it, mirror it, download it, upload it, put it on your channel, chop it up, do whatever the hell you want with it. What if it goes away? Okay, then you got a copy
mhm,
of it, right?
absolutely
Um, anything at all, just take it and run with it.
awesome. And to all my listeners, don't forget, think for yourself.